Good morning and welcome back to Reading Wikis for You, where we read the wiki articles for you. And today we're going to be reading about the Free Rasalhague Republic, a fictional star empire in the Battletech universe. As always, here on weekends we like to go with some of our more fantastical wikis out there. So with that said, don't forget, drop a comment down below so that I know what to read next time, but let's get into it. The Free Rasalhague Republic was a nation that arose in the aftermath of the Fourth Succession War when the Draconis Combine granted freedom to its seditious Rasalhague Military District. The young nation enjoyed less than 2 decades of independence before being almost totally overrun by the clans during Operation Revival. A rump state of 7 worlds existed as a de facto Comstar protectorate until the 3070s, when it chose to merge with its brethren in the Ghost Bear Dominion. A fusion which ultimately led to the founding of a hybrid clan intersphere nation known as the Rasalhague Dominion in 3103. History. In the late 23rd century, largely Scandinavian peoples wished to escape the crushing Terran taxes and colonize the world of Rasalhague and several surrounding worlds. Thus was founded the Rasalhague Consortium, each world ruled by a Valkyrian, joined by powerful and wealthy families. Soon, the consortium morphed into the Principality of Rasalhague. The Principality was largely isolationist and neutral in the wars surrounding it, but eventually came to the attention of their expansionist neighbor, the Draconis Combine. Early history. In 2330, House Kurita's Draconis Combine mustered soldiery invaded the Principality of Rasalhague, subduing it after enduring more than 3 decades of guerrilla war. The Rasalhague Military District remained the most restive province of the Combine as its original Scandinavian inhabitants resisted assimilation into the Japanese-dominated culture of their Korean conquerors. In 3004, a Rasalhagian bodyguard assassinated coordinator Hohiro Kurita. During the Fourth Succession War, many Rasalhagians greeted the Lyran Commonwealth troops as liberators and helped them to capture many Rasalhague worlds before the war's end in 3030. However, Lyran Duke Selvin Kelswa wanted to retain the conquered planets in his Tamar Pact, and his heavy-handed treatment of their people thoroughly alienated them. Independence. Following the Fourth Succession War, the Draconis Combine found itself in a precarious position. Poor leadership had led to significant losses, and the Combine could no longer ignore its outdated equipment and battle doctrines. The only notable successes had come from the Gunji no Kanrei Theodore Kurita's reformed military units, elevating him to the status of a war hero and creating a leadership crisis within House Kurita. Meanwhile, with Hans Davian having decisively defeated the Capellan Confederation, the Combine was the next likely target and needed to prepare urgently. It was at this time that Comstar's Primus Waterly decided to launch her long-planned Operation Rosebud, a plan that had several reasons for pursuing, in that Waterly believed the more splintered the Intersphere became, the easier it would become for Comstar to push its agenda. Waterly was bitterly opposed to the Federated Commonwealth Alliance, which she saw as a threat to a renewed Star League formed under Comstar. She recognized that by creating a buffer state between the Lyran half of the Commonwealth and much of the Combine, it would free the Draconis Combine mustered soldiery to defend a significantly smaller border in any future war against Hans Davian. Waterly even believed that the creation of a new state might lead to the secession of the Isle of Skye, an event that would effectively sever the 2 halves of the new superstate. Waterly brought her proposal to Diron on September 3030 to coordinator Takashi Kurita and instantly rejected. Unfazed, Waterly then met with Takashi's heir designate, the war hero Theodore Kurita, to propose the same. In exchange for granting independence to the Rasalhague Military District, forming the Free Rasalhague Republic, Comstar would clandestinely supply the Combine with much-needed military hardware, including battle mechs. In addition, Theodore would receive raw intelligence on enemy troop movements, preferential rates on interstellar HPG transmissions, the transfer of contracts of several mercenary units, and finally, the posting of Comguard forces within Combine borders. Theodore tentatively agreed, bypassing his father. Waterly then had to convince the First Circuit to accept the arrangement. She did so by assuring them that all mothballed Star League-era equipment would be stripped of Lost Tech, the advanced military equipment used by the Star League Defense Force. She also claimed that the Comguard's troops would only serve to protect innocent civilians and would not act as the aggressor. In 14 March 3034, the Draconis Combine recognized the creation of the Free Rasalhague Republic. The Archon Katrina Steiner of the Lyran Commonwealth was likewise obligated to surrender the worlds they had taken from the Rasalhague District, despite the strenuous objections of Duke Selvin Kelswa III, leader of the Tamar Pact, among others. Ronin War. Warlords Marcus Karita and Vasily Cherenkov openly revolted against the move. Many in the DCMS refused to acknowledge the Republic's independence, having fought to defend these worlds in the Fourth Succession War. Some cited concerns for the safety of the population of the worlds that were ceded. Disobeying orders, these forces remained in what was the Rasalhague Military District. This would trigger the Ronin War, with these elements of the DCMS loyal to Marcus and Cherenkov fighting against the nascent Republic Kungsarmé, and loyal DCMS elements under the command of the Conray. To uphold the Combine's honor, Theodore Karita declared these renegades Ronin, masterless warriors. The Ronin uprising was a significant threat to the Free Rasalhague Republic. The inexperienced Kungsarmé struggled against the veteran Ronin forces, and mercenaries hired under poorly worded contracts largely avoided combat while still collecting pay. This exploitation fostered long-term resentment toward mercenaries within the Republic. Even honorable units like the Kellhounds, uninvolved in the Ronin Wars, were not exempt from this negative perception. By May 3034, the Combine had gathered sufficient evidence linking Marcus Karita to the uprising. Conrad Theodore Karita publicly denounced the Ronin and called for their surrender, leading some to lay down arms. Shortly afterwards, the Free Rasalhague Republic formally requested the Draconis Combine's assistance in quelling the rebellion. With the consent of elected Prince Hakon Magnusson, Theodore Karita personally led several loyal DCMS regiments into the Republic. Battles between Ronin and loyal DCMS forces were fierce, and the Loyalists viewed the rebels' actions as deeply dishonorable. By 3035, all DCMS forces had withdrawn to the newly established Alshane Military District, having successfully eliminated the last of the Ronin. Clan invasion. However, the greatest threat to Free Rasalhague's precarious independence would come not from these two great powers, but the unexpected clan invasion of the Inner Sphere. By the time the clan advance was halted in 3052, most of the FRR was overrun by Clan Wolf and Clan Ghostbear. The rump state that survived became a virtual protectorate of Comstar. On 21 August 3070, Ragnar Magnusson spoke to the Free Rasalhague Republic government on Orestis, acting on behalf of Clan Ghostbear and the Ghostbear Dominion. Magnusson launched what would become a series of negotiations to reach an accord for all Rasalhagian peoples. Meanwhile, the Ghostbears pursued good relations with their subjects, creating the Ghostbear Dominion. In 3103, the holdout Free Rasalhague Republic merged with the Ghostbears to form the Rasalhague Dominion. Government. The Free Rasalhague Republic was governed using a system unique to the Inner Sphere and was directly descended from the government of the old Principality of Rasalhague. All positions of power and responsibility were either directly or indirectly elected by the people, even to the nobles and the Prince of the Realm. Express limits on term length and the number of terms the candidate may serve were outlined either in the FRR Constitution or the constitutions of the constituent worlds. No position was hereditary unless the son of the current holder impresses the electorate and was raised to the parent's position. The Riksforestandar, or Prince, was the political head of the Republic, the commander-in-chief of the Rasalhague Kungsarmé, and the chancellor of the Reichsbank, which acts as the government's financial arm. The candidate for Prince must be a member of Parliament and must have the support of at least 3/4 of his fellow parliamentarians to be elected. The people of Rasalhague did not directly elect a prince, but they did have the opportunity to express their approval or disapproval of the available candidates in a non-binding referendum that occurs in the weeks before the Parliament casts its vote. The successful candidate held the office for a term of 10 years and was limited by law to 2 terms. Additionally, the prince had the royal cabinet to advise him on events that would affect the Republic. This cabinet was comprised of the heads of each of the major government departments. During his term in office, the prince's official home was the Kung's Palace in the city of Reykjavik on Rasalhague itself, as well as the use of many other homes throughout the Republic, including a beautiful manor at Molnlik. Prince Hakon Magnusson traced his lineage to the original rulers of the Rasalhague in the 23rd century, as well as the legendary Norse kings of ancient Terra. Some feared that he would attempt to overturn the constitutional limits on the office of prince in an attempt to make the title hereditary. He had also made a habit of inviting the close friends to cabinet meetings so he could elicit their input on governmental policy decisions. The other nobles of the realms had similar limitations on their terms and powers. The Waldheers, world leaders, and Hertigs, dukes, are positions in the government rather than traditional hereditary titles. Holders of these positions can lose them as easily as they earn them. The Waldheers were appointed world leaders, and their terms of service vary depending on the constitutions of the worlds they govern. They are assisted in their duties by the Hertig, which are directly elected by the people of the worlds they serve. The Hertig have no specific duties other than assisting the Waldheers and attending sessions of the Riksdag. The Riksdag was the parliament of the Republic. It was separated into 4 estates, each of which had a specific set of responsibilities. The first estate was comprised of the Waldheers and the Hertigs. The leader of this estate was the Landsmarkalk, or Marshal of the Lands. It was his responsibility to set the agenda to be considered by the Riksdag as a whole. As such, it was the second most powerful position in the Republic behind the Prince. The second estate was composed of the planetary representatives. These officials were elected by the disparate worlds of the Republic to 10-year terms of office, which gave rise to its unofficial designation of the People's Parliament. Each world elected 5 representatives to send to this estate. The third estate representatives were the leading clergy of the major religions within the FRR. This estate historically followed the lead of the second estate when it came to decisions regarding policy or finances, though they took the lead regarding the moral, spiritual, or social issues affecting the Republic. The fourth estate was the province of the Republic's most important business leaders. The representatives were invited from a pool of individuals whose businesses had a net worth of greater than 100 million arbills or owned more than 10,000 hectares of land. It was the duty of the first and second estates to draft the bills that are presented to the Riksdag as a whole to consider and vote upon. To become law, the presented bill was passed by 3 of the 4 estates and then signed by the sitting prince. A veto by the prince was overturned if the legislation was passed by all 4 of the estates. Meetings of the Riksdag were scheduled to begin on January 1st of each year and lasted until at least July 1st. However, in times of crisis, these sessions may be extended or convened outside the scheduled times. The home of the Riksdag was the Palace Hall on Rasalhague. Provincial Riksdags were similarly organized and met on the planets Skandia, Radstadt, and Rasalhague to address the issues of less national import. Politics circa 3049. Born and tested by war and rebellion, the Free Rasalhague Republic treaded a fine line in the politics of the inner sphere. The prince balanced the needs of his state against pressure from the 2 great nations that lie along his borders. The neutrality that was the byword of the Principality of Rasalhague was also the professed goal of the Free Rasalhague Republic, but it was a neutrality that was measured against the political demands of the leadership of the Draconis Combine and the Lyran Commonwealth. Prince Magnusson, first prince of the new Free Rasalhague Republic, was a shrewd politician known for being careful to not anger any of the multiple special interest groups that reside within the FRR. He formed a government that professes to represent all aspects of Rasalhague's identity, but lacks in number many of the tier that resided on the worlds conquered by House Steiner. The positions of power were given to those he knew and trusted. One such staunch supporter from the Draconis planets was Tor Miraborg, military commander of the Radstadt province and Waldheer of Gunzburg. This disparity of representation was perceived by some as a snub, and in response, a party was created of those so disaffected. The Motsat Stalining Party, or Motpart for short. The Motpart consisted of members of the Riksdag who opposed the prince, either on principle for his policies or in reaction to his perceived treatment of the tier from the conquered Lyran worlds. The leader of this party is General Christian Mansdotter, first leader of the Tier Battletech Regiment. General Mansdotter, until he won the right to lead the Tier Regiment, was an officer in the LCAF. He was viewed by many as the logical leader of the new Rasalhague nation until Magnusson came forth with the treaty from the Draconis Combine that caused the initial impetus for the creation of the Free Rasalhague Republic. Though thwarted in his desire to become the new nation's prince, the fame he won as a regimental commander made him a man who could not be ignored by the new government. The prince appointed Mansdotter as overall commander of the Kungsarmé, and the Riksdag appointed him to the office of Landmarskalk in 3042. The main difference between the ruling party and the Motpart lie in their attitudes toward the governments on either side of them. The ruling party wished to appease all and tread lightly, while the Motpart preferred to distance themselves from the giants to either side. The Motpart specifically distrusted the motives of the Draconis Combine and feared the Caretans will one day return to conquer the worlds they ceded. The Mott part advocated a stronger military and seek to pursue closer ties with the Federated Commonwealth, even if this angered and possibly provoked their Cretan neighbors. Internally, the FRR was initially divided into 3 provinces named after their capital worlds, Scandia, Rodstadt, and Rasalhague. The policies of each of these provinces, and even the worlds within, varied widely from region to region and from one world to another. Many of the initial military governors that were assigned to these worlds have become Valdhirs, though some continued to hold power by suppressing the local civilian governments. The political reality of the FRR was that of a man on a tightrope over a bed of broken glass. The prince balanced the needs of his people with the reality that his decisions may cause issues with his larger and more powerful neighbors. The vaunted neutrality that was so precious to the people of Rasalhague was balanced on the perceptions of the warlike leaders that populate the other nations of the inner sphere. Rasalhague Kungsarmee, Royal Rasalhague Army. As of 3050, the Kungsarmee had the capability to field almost 150 regiments of battlemech, armor, and infantry, as well as ultimate command of 62 local militia regiments and 5 mercenary battlemech units. The total number could be further broken down into 15 battlemech regiments, 32 combat vehicle regiments, and 97 infantry regiments, including 50 mechanized. The organization of the Kungsarmee was patterned after the LCAF, with 12 departments that are headquartered in the Citadel, a large military complex on Rasalhague established under the old principality and later expanded by the Draconis Combine as the headquarters of their Rasalhague Military District. The Citadel had a fully equipped satellite command headquarters based in the capitals of each of the provinces. 12 departments were responsible for the day-to-day operations of the Kungsarmee. These were the Command Council, Administration, Medical Corps, Warriors Ombudsman, Mercenary Relations, Reservist Readiness, Strategy and Tactics, Intelligence, Transportation, Justice, Quartermaster, and Military Education departments. The Chief of Staff of the Command Council and the Provincial Commander of the Rasalhague Province was General Christian Mandelstatter. The Prince was the Oberbefehlhaber, or Commander-in-Chief, though Prince Magnusson did not take an active interest in military concerns or decisions. Each of the provinces also had a regional commander responsible for military decisions within their jurisdiction. These seconds were General Major Margaret Minuit of the Scandia province and General Gustav Mannerheim in the Rodstadt province. The actions of units such as Vincent's Vigilantes and the Dragon's Breath did real harm to the psyche of the people of the Republic. While officially operating within their contracts, the general distrust of the profession persisted for decades after the Republic's birth. Mercenaries were officially tolerated in places where the Kungsarmee lacked experience or simply the bodies, though their general outlook did suffer precipitously under officers such as General Tor Miraborg. Mercenaries were largely confined to reservations, only permitted to leave with escorts and on official business. Thus, the general population is kept away from the hated professional soldiers, though the fact that mercenaries are forced to buy supplies from the locals at exorbitant prices did placate the populace somewhat. Economy in 3049. Though the current government has made some mistakes in its economic dealings and policies, its record in dealing with the business community has, on the whole, been remarkable. The prince has used incentives such as better pay and conditions for the laborers, hereditary positions for management, and seats on the Riksdag for executives, in particularly successful and critical industries. Tie this to severe penalties for individuals and industries that were unresponsive or resistant to the changes that were being implemented, and the result is a carrot and stick system that has increased industrial growth and production in the Republic. Major industries. Industry in the FRR is as much a balancing act as the relations between the neighboring giants on either side. Many of the corporations within the FRR are either a subsidiary of a Draconis corporation or have been damaged by the nearly universal fighting. One such company with split affiliations is Metals of the Earth. MOE is a mining, chemical, and synthetic production conglomerate located on Nox. MOE has done well under the New Republic policies, but half of its production is earmarked for the Combine. The rest has gone a long way towards repairing the war damage on Republic worlds. Though, if all its output could be funneled to war repairs, it would go farther and speed up recovery on war-torn worlds. Another company that has done well in the new corporate environment is Swedenborg Heavy Industries, a manufacturer of heavy industrial robots. Under the Combine, this industry was always in debt and had constant labor unrest, while now the factories have almost tripled output. The company is also contemplating setting up a factory on Kirkbach for either battlemech or aerospace production. Though there have been many successes under the new governmental policies, there have also been some failures. One prominent failure is AMAU Electronics, Attempts to convert the major production facilities on Trondheim to support military electronics production have met with failure, though it does still produce low-end consumer items. At this time, the future of the military production lines at this facility is uncertain, and it is unlikely that this will change without major investments. Defense industry. The defense industry in the Republic is healthy, if rather limited. The company of Gorton, Kingsley, and Thorpe Enterprises, or GKT, has battlemech lines running at facilities on New Oslo, and plans have been laid to add the production of Archer and Panther mechs at this site. A second factory is being contemplated on Rasalhague, but no definitive plans have been released at this time. The second largest military manufacturer, Benson and Bjorn, has expanded its lines for personal weaponry and armored vehicles on Spittal and handle the increased demands of the Republic. The Axel Mark I and Mark II tanks have been added to the production lines at these facilities. These tanks are internal combustion engine variants of the Lyran, Rommel, and Patton, and have been a welcome addition to the vehicles available to the Kungsarmy and militia forces. Trade relations. Due to the rather unique circumstances facing the FRR, trade relations with other powers in the Inner Sphere are fraught with unintended consequences. The current government pursues an even-scale policy in all dealings with either the Lyran Commonwealth or the Draconis Combine. Under this policy, every transaction with one state has to be balanced by a transaction of equal value with the other state. Though simple in concept, it has proven to be difficult, if not outright impossible in practice. However, considering the records and reports needed to track and monitor all economic traffic, imports, and exports to these two nations has proven to be beyond the capabilities of the bureaucracy to manage. One interesting feature, as far as the Republic people and government are concerned, is that though the policy has caused issues in trade with their closest neighboring realms, this policy has no impact or limitations on trade with other Inner Sphere nations. This has caused a marked increase in traffic with both Free Worlds League and Federated Suns, as well as closer diplomatic ties with the two realms. Though the close alliance between the Federated Suns and Lyran Commonwealth may cause problems with Fed Suns commerce in the future, it currently is not an issue in the mind of the Rasalhague government. Culture. The culture of the Free Rasalhague Republic is an amalgam of the original settlers from the Scandinavian regions of Old Terra and the Japanese-dominated culture of the Draconis Combine that conquered them in the early 24th century. The Combine's attempts to dilute the native culture of the Rasalhague worlds were somewhat successful, but failed to completely supplant the local attitudes and culture. The official language of the Republic is Swedish, but the dominant language of everyday life is a mix of Korean Japanese and Swedish called Swedenese. This language has slowly evolved from a pidgin amalgam to a fully formed, living language over the years of the Korean occupation of Rasalhague. Today it is a rich language with a deep history and respectable body of literature. Swedenese is difficult for non-natives to learn, as a good foundation in both root languages is a requirement for fluency. The state religion of the Republic is the Lutheran Church, or Radstadt Synod. 1/3 of the population of the FRR are members of this faith, though other Christian religions, as well as Hinduism, Islam, and Buddhism, have substantial numbers of followers as well. The modern Norse faith, a reinterpretation of the ancient Norse polytheism, is a growing sect, and other small minor sects such as the One-Star faith also have a presence. The short-term goals of the Republic are simply to survive as a nation. The long-term goals involve increasing its military and establishing strong interstellar political alliances so that the FRR is no longer seen as an inviting target of conquest and raiding. Some of the current policies, such as the even scale policy, do little to strengthen the position of the Republic, but no change is foreseeable as long as the current leadership is in power. Though a minority, specifically the Mott part, would like to see a change in leadership, their influence is not strong enough to force the prince to step down before his term of office is complete in 3054. At this time, the Republic is surviving and in some ways thriving, though discontent with the current leadership is a constant and slowly growing concern among policy leaders both in and beyond the borders of the Free Rasalhague Republic. And then we have a few maps for the Rasalhague Republic over the years. Obviously, dramatically reduced in size after the clan invasion. So, that was actually fun. Going to editorialize a little bit, even though I don't normally. I do like how most of it dealt with, status as of the economy in 3049, because after that it's clan invasion and they basically don't exist anyways. So, fun little side trip into one of the factions of Battletech. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. If you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And as always, please put a comment down below and let me know what articles you'd like to hear from next. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.